I'm not sure I would want to take my family through a national park after talking to you and reading Missing 411.
You know, George, one of the things I do when I talk to groups is I tell them I'm a big advocate of the national park system. I go all the time, but there's a couple things I won't do. I won't go alone. I always carry a personal transponder. And if you're taking kids, keep your kids in front of you and always keep them in sight.
Eloise Lindsay Page.
That is one of the more unusual stories along the Appalachian Trail in South Carolina. She was in Table Rock State Park. And I've written a lot about the Appalachian Trail. There's a lot of really unusual things that have happened there and a lot of strange disappearances all along there. She was an older lady, I think she was in her early 20s, going to do a hike of 43 miles. And she was well prepared, lots of experience. She was going to get picked up, I think, 7 to 8 days after her drop-off point. Well, she wasn't there for the pickup point. Her story is that about 3 days into it, there were a series of men that were following her and harassing her on the trail. Now, when you just take it at that point, hey, maybe it's happened.
Maybe.
This went on for days. And eventually, 14, 18 days, a hunter finds her cowering in the woods.
Cowering. She's alive.
Alive. They bring her out, and she tells this story that these men followed her, harassed her. She dumped her backpack. She got rid of everything. And then she was eventually went to the hospital. The interesting part of the story to me isn't what she said, because she never explained exactly what she saw. But when her mom was interviewed, her mom said, "I'm not sure what really happened to my daughter in the woods, and I don't really know for sure what my daughter saw in the woods."
Huh. Like she was not accepting the story of the men?
Or her daughter obviously wasn't comfortable in telling the whole story. But that scenario of the men along the Appalachian Trail, there's been many disappearances there over the years where people are just never found. There's a woman named Geraldine Largay that was in Maine that was walking the entire Appalachian Trail, and every day or every 2 days her husband would resupply her. She was 66 years old, I think, maybe a little older. Phenomenal shape.
Jeez.
She'd call her husband all the time. One day didn't call. Massive search. Maine Warden Service threw everything at that search, and even the wardens said they couldn't believe they didn't find anything of her. Still never been found. That was a real troubling one. Every once in a while, something very, very bizarre and strange happens, and these people disappear and aren't found. And I'm not talking just on very rural trails. I'm talking about on some of the main trails inside the park. There's a man named George Penka disappeared on one of the biggest trails in Yosemite 2 years ago. And I know some of the people that were involved with that, and they said, there's no way that guy could have disappeared. He was a robust man, not in terrific shape. He wasn't going to go anywhere off the trail. He vanished, and to this day, they've never found him.
But you would think that you would hear screams, yells, "Help me." None of that.
No. Every once in a while, there'll be a small shriek, but again, a lot of times it can't be attributed directly to the victim. It's just something that happens in conjunction with the disappearance. And sometimes it's not even in that exact area that they believed that their son or daughter was in. So I'm not even sure if it's related, but they report it sometimes.
Does this story scare you? I mean, you've been uncovering it for a number of years now.
So I can say that my own behavior has changed just a little. Like, I will not go in the woods alone.
Because of this story that you've been uncovering?
Correct.
Okay.
I will always carry a personal transponder, and I tell people, I don't care who you are, and I know Les Stroud, Survivor Man, personally, and I don't think he would go into the woods without a personal transponder. So I can say that it's a foolish thing not to do that. If you can't afford one, almost every sporting goods outdoor store will rent one to you for $5 to $10 a day.
That's smart. So
carry that. And always tell a close friend where you're going to go in, when you're going to come out, and if you're not out by a certain day, you tell them. A lot of the times, the hunters that disappeared, they're always alone. But more hunters on bow hunting side of the fence than the firearm side of the fence disappear. Meaning, for some reason, bow hunting seems to be a more dangerous thing to do. Now, these aren't predator attacks, meaning bear, mountain lion, etc.
Right.
And at the times where their clothing is found, there's no evidence of that. You know, there would be evidence. There would be
A bear
blood.
doesn't conveniently unbutton you
No. Or roll up your belt buckle or fold
and
your
put
pants.
your shoes by your pants. Yeah,
Exactly.
That doesn't happen.
In Colorado, northern Colorado, a boy named Jared Atadero disappeared. His dad told a group of singles people that they could take his son to the fish hatchery a mile away. And unbeknownst to the dad, Alan, this group of young adults decided that they were going to go walk a trail and never told the dad, and took Jocelyn and Jared on this walk up this trail. They were single people. They didn't know that you're supposed to watch kids real close.
Yeah.
Jared ran ahead of the group, walked up and saw a couple fishermen. And Jared asked the fishermen, "Are there any bear around here?" And the fisherman got upset and said, "No bear around here." And he was hitting the water with a stick, and they told him, "Hey, don't do that. It's
Chasing
bad
the
for-"
fish away.
Right.
Yeah.
They let this kid go. Jared walked on, was never seen alive
Not
again.
smart.
Now, 4 years later, and 600 feet up the trail, I've been on this trail 20 times, and George, I can tell you, I've never made a tougher climb in my life. It was probably 70 degrees, almost straight up, for
Exhausting.
600 feet. Exhausting. And at the top, and in this boulder-ridden area, they found his skull cap, and they found one tooth sitting on top of a log.
One tooth.
And then they found his shoes, sweatshirt, and his pants. Now, imagine this scenario.
4 years later.
4 years later, 4 winters in Colorado.
Yeah.
They turn all the evidence over to Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and I have held the shoes. George, they look brand new. Like they were never sitting outside.
Never weathered.
And then the pants were turned inside out. And the sweatshirt he was wearing still had vibrant colors. Now, I've interviewed Alan, his dad.
And they didn't look like they were out in the weather for 4 years.
No, not in the least.
It's as if something brought it back, maybe within days.
That's to me what it looks like. But
You can't keep clothes out there in Colorado for 4 years without it looking like somebody was in a mud wrestling contest.
Well, then you think about the wind and the rain and the snow. You think it
it's
would have
dirty.
been blowed
It's-
off.
yeah.
Right? So in speaking to Alan, interviewing him, he said, one thing my son never did is he never tied his shoes.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a lot of people, and I don't understand it. If a mountain lion had grabbed him or a bear had grabbed him and drug him up that hill, there's no way those shoes would have stayed on his feet. The clothing was presented to 4 different mountain lion experts, and each of them said there's no way a mountain lion killed that boy. There would have been blood all over the clothing. His garments would have been torn to shreds. That wasn't the scenario.
No closure.
No closure, no help,
Yeah.
no assistance, no explanation, and people would just want to wash their hands of it and walk away. And that is a recurring scenario. I don't care what country you're in, that is what's happening.
Do these parents speculate on what they think might have happened?
So in the case of Jared Atadero, Alan, his dad is a teacher in Colorado. And I've interviewed him many times. And he has a very open mind. He has a difficult time believing that that clothing was out there for 4 years. He got a phone call right in the middle of this big search effort, maybe 2 weeks into it, by somebody saying that they're from the sheriff's office and they were withholding information from you. And he said, "I hope you find the truth someday." And they hung up.
Huh. That's weird.
Very weird. And Alan's told me before it's bothered him as ever, 16, 17 years later. And he and I have some really good discussions. He read my book. He contacted me and he said, "Dave, you're one of the few guys that was willing to tell the truth and tell the whole story." And he said, a lot of people just want to think it's something natural. The local press will just say, "Oh, it's a mountain lion attack."
Mountain lion. The elements got him.
Exactly. And he said, few want to get in and know the facts and hear from experts. Now, in our documentary, we're going to present those experts and let the facts be known, let people decide on their own what's going on.
Jeez. Let's talk about some of the cases of these disappearing people, David. How about Larry D. Wayne Krebs?
He was at Lake Texoma in southern Oklahoma, and they were out middle of the afternoon one day collecting firewood. His dad said 8 paces behind him. He could hear him.
8.
And
this desk is 4 feet long, so you just double it. That's nothing.
Not far. And you wouldn't call that negligent either. I mean, we've all done that.
Of course.
And
you turn around,
Yeah. Well, his dad said he turned around at one point and his son wasn't there.
Gone.
And search and rescue came in and they searched, and they said that they followed a series of prints behind his dad's that walked into a puddle of water, and that was it. And the puddle of water was a couple inches deep.
Yeah,
it wasn't big.
It wasn't like a hole.
No. And massive search. Found nothing. And to this day, Larry's never been found. So imagine law
How do you
enforcement.
explain this?
Imagine law enforcement or search and rescue, never worked a case like that before, sees that. Obviously, at the beginning, your focus is going to be on the dad. And after you exclude him...
You realize the dad's in tremendous mourning. He's in shock.
Oh, yeah. And then imagine you're the dad and law enforcement is looking at you.
But you got to understand that.
Hopefully you do.
You know, I would. I mean, I would, as upset as I would be for them even to question it, you have to understand that you're the first suspect. You're the last one to see the kid.
Right. It's a hard line for law enforcement to walk, and it's even a harder line for the parents. But having that belief system, what you just explained, would be perfect for getting law enforcement past that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Larry's never been found.
Logic tells you that the kid was picked up. Picked up.
And again, if you would have found tracks on the ground, there would have been a scent trail. And even under that scenario, he couldn't have gone in the ground because the water was still there.
Yeah.
So,
David, you keep doing what you're doing, all right? Because somebody's got to watch this story. Thank you so much for being on
my
Beyond
pleasure,
Belief.
George. Thank you.